The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of this station and/or Confederation College.
Welcome everybody to the Mind Vault TV.
The Mind Vault. I'm Ava Shriver-Dunn.
And I'm Kevin Dunn.
And we are really, really excited to be launching this talk show today.
And you might be wondering what the Mind Vault is. Well, the Mind Vault itself is a brand. It's a place. It's a business community. It's a resource website.
And now it's a web TV talk show.
Talk show.
Yeah.
So whatever form it comes in, guaranteed the Mind Vault will expand your mind.
The Mind Vault is an out-of-the-box kind of talk show, and where we interview experts, best-selling authors, and top researchers from around the world in various fields of study, from ancient wisdom and the new science of quantum physics to alternative health and human consciousness.
Wow, that's a big bill to fill.
That's a big bill to fill.
Yeah. Well, we're really excited here today because today we have a very special guest. He's actually coming through from Ottawa on Skype. He's joining us here on Skype.
And his name is Michael Tellinger. Michael Tellinger is a scientist, explorer, and internationally acclaimed author of numerous books, namely Slave Species of God, Adam's Calendar, Temples of the African Gods, and Ubuntu, Contributionism, a blueprint for human prosperity. He's become an authority on the vanished civilizations of Southern Africa and the origins of humankind. His research and discoveries of an advanced vanished civilization in South Africa includes a diverse field of research and touches on human origins, spirituality, science, and consciousness. His continued efforts and analytical scientific approach have produced physical evidence to support much of Zecharia Sitchin's writings and delivers proof of the presence of the Anunnaki and their ancient gold mining activity in southern Africa. Michael's work will force us to rethink our origins and rewrite our history books. He's the founder of the Ubuntu Liberation Movement and the Ubuntu Party, which contested the elections in South Africa just last month. So, Michael, are you there? Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
You got the Timmy's coffee.
There's guaranteed to be one near every hotel.
And thanks to Chris for shooting out quickly, because as I told you earlier, we're trying to catch on some sleep, some badly needed sleep after about 10 days on the road now, and we feel a bit like a bunch of 1970s rock musicians. It really feels like a road trip, entertaining people all over Canada while we're sharing some New Age philosophy, if you want to call it New Age, more human philosophy with them, and learning all about Canadian customs. And you just taught me one of the important Canadian customs.
Well, you can't be in Canada without drinking a Tim Hortons coffee at least once.
Yeah, right. And I hope they're going to pay for this endorsement.
Well, you know what? Maybe we're on to something here.
Yeah.
So how is the tour going anyway, Michael?
Unbelievable. It's the first time that apparently a tour of this nature has taken place. And sorry, I'm just turning you down a little bit here because I'm getting your echo through my own speakers as I'm talking.
Sure.
So maybe you can turn me lower in your studio, so I'm not hearing myself feeding back on myself. What's happening here is that the intention of this tour from Chris and Dave, Chris Rissack and Dave Whitehead that created it, was to lay a platform for a new alternative, just like you're doing with your radio show, taking the information and the experts and the researchers actually to the people on a stage and a platform where people can physically interact with the individuals, because that is as important as radio and television is having people you can talk to face. So we reintroduce the human contact into this level of information, which is sadly and badly missing. The tour is going incredibly well. The people are responding so it's almost difficult to explain, because it is a truly life-changing experience for many people that come and listen to information of this nature, as you may or may not be aware. People are breaking down and crying at these workshops and these presentations. It's like almost a mass psychology session where people go inwards and analyze their lives, analyze what's wrong with the world, and realize, and this is the important thing, realize that there are simple solutions to the problems that we face as the human race, and that it's not all doom and gloom, although that's what most of us face on a daily basis, is doom and gloom, and everybody is dealing with some sort of problem. Everyone is fighting their own battle of some kind that the other people are not aware of. And when you, especially when I talk about the Ubuntu and contributionism to people, and I had a similar experience in Austria on my European tour in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Holland earlier this year, where at the end of a workshop, people it's this release of stress and anxiety, where people actually break down and cry, and that is a very interesting experience, because I certainly did not expect this, and I've had to learn how to deal with this. People just letting go of their emotions. Yeah.
Well, you're being an instrument for people to have their own personal transformations, I think, when you share this kind of information with them. And isn't that really where we need to go on this planet? Is we need to get to a place where people are evolving and, you know, moving beyond, if you want to get into the media, move beyond the headlines and moving beyond the history books that we've been privy to in our own upbringing, and get us to a place where we dig deeper and
well, we need to shift perspectives.
Well, we need to shift perspectives
in
sure.
a major way, because what's happening is that we've been led down the garden path by a lot of different people and media, etc., and people are just stuck in the one major perspective, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
So when, you know, groups like Michael and go on tour to actually help shift perspectives, it's a tremendous thing, and
it's powerful.
Totally, very, very powerful. I can totally
I think it's
see
great
people.
that people are releasing and letting
that's
go.
awesome.
I mean, Michael, that's got to feel so rewarding to be doing this work.
It feels rewarding, but at the same time, there's a realization of now you've taken on a really serious responsibility. And again, when you start this journey, you don't know that this is going to happen. 10 years ago, I had no idea that I was going to be doing this. 5 years ago, I had no idea. Even 2 years ago, when I was really into, I started talking about the contributionism thing about on a more regular basis about 4 or 5 years ago, and that progressively increased and became a larger part and component of my presentations and my research. And now it is the main part of my research and the message to the people that I do presentations to. So you take on a serious responsibility, and it's that realization, oh my goodness, these people are now looking at you for answers and solutions, and it's almost like you're being elevated to some sort of a guru status, which is not what I want to do. I don't want to be anybody's guru, because the guru is within. You know, God is within you. You are your own savior, but we've been so battered and bruised and so damaged by the current socioeconomic system that people no longer realize it. People don't believe it. Our religions tell us that God is not within you, that God is somebody in the cloud with a big stick. It's going to beat you if you don't do certain things. And so it's a complete re-evaluation of who we are as sentient beings and living, breathing human beings, and that all the power and the knowledge and the connectedness to source is within us. And this is a role that I'm learning how to play without allowing ego and arrogance to enter that space, because I can understand how somebody could run away with this, and it becomes more and more obvious.
Absolutely. So I just want to ask you, like, can we just back up a little bit, and can you talk to us a little bit about what contributionism really is? I'm not going to say the word. Kevin can say it. He grew up in
Ubuntu.
Africa, so I think he has the better
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Yes, the movement that you've spearheaded here and you've brought to the certainly South Africa and now elsewhere.
It's become a planetary movement, which I think is absolutely
that's
phenomenal.
great. Yeah.
So can you just share with our listeners what the contributionism is all about? And, we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think anyone watching this show or anyone alive today is happy with the way the world is going, the way things are. And that doesn't take a long time to determine. So something is wrong. And as you start looking around and analyzing what's wrong with our lives and with our system, you start to realize that it's deeply, deeply convoluted set of lies that have been spoon-fed to us, as Kevin said, for a long time. And the lies and the deceptions run so deep that when you start unraveling those lies, many people don't even want to accept it because they can't believe that the lies can be so severe and so deep and have been going on for so long. And yet at the same time, we have this beautiful human spirit that we find weaving its way through every society, every country, every community. There are always beautiful human beings that are doing great work within their communities that have often unbeknown to others in their communities become the foundation of stability and unification of people in their community. And that's in essence what the word Ubuntu means. It means it represents a united community that works together, where people work together in cooperation rather as opposed to competition and separation, where people work together in cooperation towards the greater benefit of all the people in their community. Ubuntu is often described as meaning, I am who I am because of who we all are. And it's a beautiful philosophy that's not just an African philosophy. In fact, all ancient cultures around the world, all native people around the world share that kind of philosophy. They have different words for it, but ultimately it means the same thing. So this is what we're trying to reintroduce, or what I have been reintroducing for since 2005. So it's been 10 years now that I've been on this road to reintroduce this philosophy to the community of the human race. And as you said, it has suddenly in the last 5 years started exploding. And in the last year, we now have members in more than 200 countries, the Ubuntu movement. We have Ubuntu parties, and we talk more about that, why it's become a political movement at the same time. Because in essence, it's a movement of higher consciousness, but we do utilize the political platform to get some of our philosophies out into the mainstream media. Otherwise, we'd be completely marginalized. So we now have members in more than 200 countries, and we have Ubuntu parties that are currently, as we speak, busy being set up in around 125 countries around the world, and Canada is being one of them. In fact, the guys that organized the tour, Dave and Chris, and also Eliza Knockwood, who joined us on the tour, who's a First Nations activist and incredible human being that speaks truth. They have put up their hand to actually set up the Ubuntu party here in Canada and start growing that movement so that it can actually participate in the Canadian national elections the next time around, as we did in South Africa on the 7th of May. So Ubuntu and contributionism is really the same thing. When I first started writing about contributionism in 2005, was a consequence of my research into human origins and the origins of humankind. When I realized that there was a time in human history where money did not exist and people survived in communities very happily. And I started asking myself, well, how did this money then become such a big thing in humanity? And why is it completely and utterly infiltrated every crack and crevice of our humanness? And how is it that money has become an untouchable, unassailable religion more so than any other religion. You know, you can't attack money. The moment you attack money, people go, oh, no, hold on, you can't do that. You can attack Catholics and Jews and Muslims. You can attack, you know, Buddhists and Hindus. That's okay. But if you attack money and say money shouldn't be part of our society, people go crazy. They can't imagine that. So it's become a holier cow than anything else we have in our lives today.
And in a lot of ways, it's become an instrument too for a lot of destruction on this planet.
Well, it is the primary instrument for not just some destruction, for total and utter annihilation of the human spirit, of our planet, of our connectedness, of the human unity, of consciousness. It is, and this is, I think, what people realize when they come to my presentations and they get deeper into how this money has infiltrated humanity and is directly responsible for all the darkness on this planet and in our lives. Everything that is bad is controlled by money. And once people realize that the moment you remove money from the system, how everything turns upside down. So in essence, contributionism is just a modern day word that I came up with that describes communities in a modern society as opposed to Ubuntu, which is an ancient philosophy. So contributionism is sort of the modern version of that, because we can't just walk out of the lives we have today. We will still carry on in cities and houses and suburbs for a long time to come. So we need to find a different way of how to start transforming our lives within the current socioeconomic structure we have, start transforming our lives towards the a betterment and the emancipation of humanity from the financial and economic enslavement we find ourselves in, which that's all it is. It's total and utter financial and economic enslavement of every single one of us. So that's what contributionism describes. As it says in the word, contributionism, where people contribute their God-given talents and acquired skills for the greatest benefit of all people in their community, not for their own benefit at the expense of others. That is the reason why we're in so much trouble, is this thing called capitalism and the social structure, corporate hierarchy that benefits the few at the expense of everybody else. And
wow.
I have a 5-point mantra for those that want to get deeper into it. And obviously, I have a book that I wrote about this, because this is not an easy subject to cover in just 1 hour. It's something that you have to go through step by step and wean yourself off the dependence or the addiction to money. Literally, it is a detoxification process. It's like going to, Alcoholics Anonymous, and saying, forgive me for I have sinned. I've been using money all my life and destroyed, everybody's lives in the process. And I'm now going to stop, and I'm going to be nice to humanity and nice to everybody around me. And I'm going to start sharing everything that I do and everything I have, so that everybody benefits from my talents and my gifts that I've been blessed with. And I will benefit from the gifts and the talents of everybody else. And
so Michael, I just want to ask you, if you don't mind me jumping in, I just want to ask you a question. You must be getting a lot of feedback from people in the world who obviously are naysayers and say, oh, well, that's very idealistic of you to think that that's going to happen, or that, that's possible. I just want to know how do you respond to people when they come back like that? Because I guarantee you've had it, right?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, I've been doing this for 10 years now. So collectively, in total, I must have had 100,000 questions from people around the world, either via email, via Skype, at the presentations I've done. And of course, but every time people respond, the naysayers, the doubters, it's all a knee-jerk reaction. And they come from a position of a lack of information, a position of ignorance. And most importantly, a position of fear. Most of the questions and the arguments people put on the table in their defense of money comes purely only from a position of fear and a lack of understanding how their lives will change for the better once you remove that obstacle to progress, or that hurdle to progress, because that's all money is. It constantly gets in the way between what people want to do, what they want to achieve, and what they're allowed to achieve. Money keeps getting in the way.
That's right.
And so the naysayers, I find that once they learn enough about this, and sometimes it takes a minute or two just to give them a few pointers for the penny to drop in certain areas of doubt in their mind. And once they've satisfied themselves and suppressed some of the fear or eliminated some of the fear out of their own doubt, their minds and their doubt, they open their minds, because what fear does, it puts you into shock, right? Fear puts your body under stress immediately.
Well, we immediately
So
go into the fight or
not
flight
only are you
response,
speaking
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly, yeah.
I think for this tour right now.
Go
Let you
ahead.
have
Let him
another
drink his coffee.
No, I think the timing of this tour is extremely interesting, because I think right now, I mean, humanity is in a very tenuous spot on this planet, and it's about bringing forth solutions in addition to helping to change perspectives on the way things have been done. And I mean, even Einstein, he said you cannot solve the solution for a problem does not exist at the energy level that created the problem. So we have to get out of that level of thinking in order to shift our perspectives and to be able to create. I mean, the human spirit, like you mentioned, is incredible. And when people are given the opportunity to come up with creative solutions to things and actually discard potential solutions that are tried once, aren't working, let's get rid of it. You know, let's try another solution. So what that needs an elevated type of thinking where we can establish as many potential solutions and then try each solution. And then the ones that don't work, let's get rid of them.
And the reality is, though, is that there's always going to be people who aren't at that stage in their own development.
Of course there are.
And it's going to just be too much for their neurology, right?
Yeah,
it's just going to blow their mind, literally.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably what you're experiencing, Michael, when you're on your tour and when you're speaking, is that, you know, people are breaking down because it's literally, I mean,
Well, it's a blowing out of boundaries.
It's a blowing
right?
out of
Exactly.
boundaries, right? Because we're NLP practitioners, so I mean, we understand that when people have all of a sudden new information that's given to them, it can create whole new neural connections instantly, right? So we get what you're talking about. I mean, what you're doing is absolutely
That's phenomenal,
amazing. Yeah, we're so impressed.
The timing is perfect.
The timing is absolutely
Absolutely
perfect.
perfect.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad that both of you guys agree with me and that you're not skeptics, because often, you know, you talk to people on radio and television and they themselves are skeptics. So they don't really add value to helping humanity. So it's critical that you as the host of the show actually understand it and get it and understand why people break down. And also I think it's because of the realization that there is a solution for the misery and the problem that humanity is in. It's when that penny drops for people, when they realize this is the real thing, this is a real solution, plausible, achievable solution, and it is so simple that all of us can get it like that. And that's when the release of all the frustration and stress and anxiety of life that all of us experience on a daily basis just comes pouring out. And it is a very rewarding experience, but as I said, quite a heavy weight to carry with you as far as the responsibility as well.
Okay, so I have to ask this question, and I'm sure that Kevin's probably been thinking it, but I just wonder, I mean, we're talking about you're presenting options to people that maybe they never considered before, and what you're proposing has got to be absolutely, well, of course, it's not in alignment with those powers that be in the world. And so I'm just curious, have you had your life threatened?
No, and this is where you have to be completely and utterly aligned with truth and source, with the divine source, and know that this is your path, and understand that your protection is a divine level of protection that very few people understand, and that this is a path you've chosen. And this has just dawned upon me not so long ago, and certain things have happened in my life that have come back and that I've forgotten about, and reminded me of things that have happened and how my life and path is like a river flown to this point in time. And it is a very interesting realization.
And some
Where
people
I've met-
will grip
yeah.
that river, grip those rocks in the river too.
Yeah, they'll
won't
hold
they?
the side of the
They'll
river.
hold the
Yes.
side and say, "I'm
That's it.
not letting go. I'm
Yes.
not going. I'm too scared. What's down that river might hurt me." And if
But
they
all this
just
time,
realize,
the water's creating turbulence around them.
yeah, and if they
Yes.
just realize if they just let go of the resistance and surrendered
Yes.
And get in the flow.
Yeah.
and
And-
let themselves just go with the flow, they could be the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's Bruce Lee, isn't it? That's what Bruce Lee used to say. Be like water, my friend.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
Now, because you brought it up, Michael, I certainly have to ask the question: what did bring you to this point? I mean, there has to have been. Was there an aha moment in your life? Were you sort of on the other far end of the spectrum and decided to take a quantum leap to the other side, or did you have something happen over
What
a
was the
period of
dissonance?
time? Yeah, what was the
dissonance
dissonance in
that,
you that when this is not right, I don't want to live this way anymore, and there's got to be a better way? Like what really happened? I'm really curious.
I guess it's the sum of events of my entire life, and the sum of my experiences. And you see that in little children when you show them scary movies, and you show little children movies where there are bad characters and good characters, and they always, you see little kids steer away from the bad characters and root for the good guys in the movies and the cartoons to overcome evil, right? So I guess that's just the spirit I've always had in my heart and my soul. And I remember watching movies like Braveheart and all those kind of movies that
My
we've all been
favorite.
exposed to. Whenever you watch movies like that, I've always felt a deep sense of why do we not have people standing up to the atrocities and the abuse of humanity today? And we have those people standing up, but we don't know about them. We never hear about them, so that either they get eliminated or something happens to them. So I guess through the sum of my own experiences and everything I've ever done in my life has brought me to this point and is now serving me to be able to do this work that I'm doing. From being in the music industry to being in the advertising industry to being on television and being able to sing and speak and all this kind of stuff, and understanding the marketing concept, the media, and being able to help me use those experiences, for which I've often been called a jack of all trades. But I didn't see it like that all my life. I just saw, well, I've been there, done that. I'm now tired of this, and I'm going to let go of those rocks, like you said, and flow with the river and see where the river takes me next. So I've done a lot of things in my life. Being in the pharmaceutical industry, I studied pharmaceutics at medical school for 5 years. So I've done a lot of things, been in a lot of industries, and have a much broader understanding of life and the world around us than people that go to school, come out of school with a certificate, get into a job and have a career for 30 years, from which they retire, and their perspective and their knowledge of life is really restricted by what they did with their life. And isn't that how the current system wants you to behave? Because then you become a very soft target and a great a perfect proponent of the system that they've thrusted you in.
That's right. I mean, that's be honest with you, that's why we homeschool our kids.
Absolutely. And not only that, so let me be very right up front here. Throughout the tour and in Germany, where people broke down and cried because they're not allowed to do this, we send a very strong message to everyone we go. It says, stop sending your children to school. Stop it. Take them out of school right now and start homeschooling your children. Do not expose them to the fascist military-style indoctrination and brainwashing for 12 years, the 12 most precious years of their life, that you are handing your children over to an external authority that is abusing your children, brainwashing them, poisoning their minds against the parents themselves, against the broader human consciousness, the broader human spirit, turning them into individuals that do not understand cooperation, but fill their head with the lies of competition, that want to get them to the top of the pile at the expense of everybody else.
Well, it's
And
the
this
old
is
agrarian way of thinking, right? Where it's we got to create great soldiers and we have to create great factory workers.
workers,
I
yeah.
mean, it's amazing to me that in 2014 we haven't moved beyond that way of thinking and that whole system that was put in place so long ago. It just absolutely amazes me.
Well, I guess the whole the thing is that anything new right now, the system sees that as a threat. And what happens is that the guard goes up, right? And all of this stuff, and we're looking at these well-entrenched systems within society. You're looking at political systems and social systems and the education system.
Economic systems.
Economic system is all so entrenched. I mean, natural pharmaceutical, alternative medicine alone. Everything is just geared towards the allopathic side of life because it's got the doctors, it's got the pharmaceutical companies, it's got the politicians, it's got the money behind it, right? And here we are. I mean, even in Canada, we've got like Bill C-36 that has, wiped out 90% of all alternative natural products.
Yeah,
right
I mean,
overnight.
it's getting to the point in Canada. I mean, listen, this is what I don't understand. I mean, it quite amazes me how Canadians, and we'll just talk about Canadians for a second because they can be pretty naive.
Oh, yes.
And, I've been a little bit of a whistleblower myself on Facebook over the years, and my kids have said, Mom, you got to stop doing that. You're going to get in trouble. But I don't live in fear, so don't worry about it. But I mean, the thing is that we're constantly having our rights taken away in this country, bills that are being passed in the middle of the night.
Overnight.
It's like that typical magician's trick where it's look over here
Sleight of
while
hand.
we do something else over here. And Canadians are not
They're not immune to it.
Not immune to it.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not just happening in Canada. I mean, the States have had so many of their rights stripped away, and I'm sure it's happening everywhere in the world. So I just think that I just have to wonder at what point will we have a critical mass of people that are finally stepping up, waking up, and stepping up, and stop being the bystanders in this whole process. What is it going to take?
I think we're approaching the critical mass very quickly now. We're beyond the 2012 prophecy. We are in the new age. We are the people we've been waiting for. And you're hearing that statement a lot lately. And we got to start taking those responsibilities and carrying them bravely on our shoulders and start sharing this information with people without fear and without restraint and without any reservations. And this is why it's very important that we participated in the elections in South Africa. And I'd like to just say a little bit about that to give the Canadians hope and confidence and an exciting way forward, because we've now laid the foundation. It's happened in one country, in South Africa, where a movement of consciousness has entered the political platform and uses the political platform as a springboard to share human philosophies and not political rhetoric and political BS, philosophies of humanness and high consciousness, to inject it into the political arena. So if we can succeed now in taking our experience in South Africa and sharing that and setting it up in more than 20 countries within a very short space of time and more countries to follow, we're going to have a global political movement of higher consciousness that participates in political elections and gives people a true alternative and a party of that finally people can have real faith and trust in, because until now many people simply abstain from voting because they just believe it's not going to get anywhere. So
I'm one of them.
What happened in South Africa and already happening in Canada is that people that have never voted will say, oh my goodness, I have a reason to vote for the first time in my life. And I must tell you that we've had hundreds, if not thousands, of emails that we got from people that told us in South Africa, I have never voted before, but now you've given me a reason to vote. Finally, there's something for me to vote for. And this is the most encouraging thing that I think we've achieved. Also, the fact that we were on a political platform gave us a level of credibility that we are walking the talk. We're not just a bunch of leftist alternative thinkers, bunny huggers, dope smokers, and weird people that are trying to change the world with singing Kumbaya, because that's often how they paint you, right?
Of course.
They always, the mainstream media tries to, degrade you and belittle you by painting you with that tone. And they've been doing this for so long now that, for people that are on the outskirts of mainstream media and trying to make change, have become immune to it. But once you enter the political platform, that flies out the window, because now you're on the same level as all the other political parties. And what was interesting is during the elections of South Africa on the 7th of May, 2014, we had my book, Ubuntu Contributionism, just put up a pile of books on our table. You got all the political parties with their tables and their delegates looking at the big screens and waiting for the election results to come down, right? Come down from the sky. Yeah. And one by one, these other political parties, including the ruling party. I mean, imagine this is the equivalent of the Secretary of State or the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Canada coming past your table and seeing that book and going, "Are you selling these books, or what is this all about?" And we'd say, "No, it's for everyone. Just take a copy," because I was giving them away there, planting the seed of consciousness. By the end of the elections, after the 4 days that we were there during the voting and the counting, every political party, including the ruling party and the official opposition parties, had at least one copy of the Ubuntu Contributionism book on their table, and there was always at least one person reading the book, and often someone reading it over their shoulder. So even though we didn't get into the elections because we were robbed of about 200,000 votes, it was very obvious. So they did what they could to keep us out of Parliament. We should have had at least 4 seats in Parliament, but we were clearly robbed. And it also became very clear how corrupt and completely controlled the elections are, not just in South Africa, but every other country.
Absolutely.
So you'll probably experience that in Canada as well. But what we managed to do is inject that seed of consciousness into every political party, which has now resulted in a lot of the smaller parties forming a coalition with the Ubuntu Party and creating a new Ubuntu Alliance, Ubuntu Coalition, because they now know what the problem is. Because you'd be surprised how few people in politics actually know what's going on. They have no idea. The fact that we, and again, just, because you won't know this, and the people that watching this won't know this, but our television commercial, which I did for the elections, starts by saying, "Did you know that the South African Reserve Bank is a privately owned company controlled from Switzerland, and that banks make money out of thin air and control our government?" And our whole single-minded message for these elections was to close down the Reserve Bank, and we say this in the TV commercial. We're going to close down the Reserve Bank and create a people's bank that issues money for the people, by the people, tax-free and interest-free, so that we don't have to pay levies, taxes, or interest of any kind, because the money belongs to the people. And a lot of the politicians in the other parties were not aware of this. So once they got over the shock that the Reserve Bank, like the Federal Reserve Bank and the Bank of England and whatever the national bank in Canada is, are all privately owned companies that are outside of the government, over which the government has no control, and that's the big shock to the system.
Yep.
That's
They
right.
can do what they want.
The Crown controls it in Canada, and it's a corporation.
Yeah,
and I know so
they're
many
all
people
corporations.
that just go, no, it's owned by the government. So, and we elect the government, so we're in control. No, not exactly.
I mean, and even in the States, I mean, it's had me wondering for some time now, what, if you look at all the different political models that are out there and economic models that are out there, it's had me wondering many times as to whether or not these are just test beds to see what exactly works. And if you throw a crisis at one of them,
Yes.
how is that system going to react?
It's like a great big laboratory.
It's a big lab,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think not only do I agree with you, but I think they actually use different countries and states and cities and situations to test this. And
Of course.
for example, I think the situation in Iceland that a lot of people and
Right.
even myself get excited about, and I write about it in my book, because it did solve a big problem and it did relieve the people of Iceland from unimaginable debt that they were thrust into by the private banks. Uh, but I believe what happened in Cyprus was just a complete, absolute test. Close down the banks, keep all the money, take all the money out of people's accounts, and that's it.
Yep.
And see what happens. What are the people going to do about this? And the answer was very little.
Yeah.
Very little.
Right.
Because there's very little people can do, because people do not speak with one voice. We are so totally divided, and the government and the banks speak with one voice. The people need to unite and start speaking with one voice, with respect to the local municipalities, the local governments, and then their national governments. And this is really part of the Ubuntu contributionism philosophy and the plan of action that we are now implementing in South Africa. And this is what I share with people in my workshops on this tour, is what exactly are we doing? How are we structuring the system? How are we getting ourselves out of it? So it's not just a free-for-all idea, like a wild, crazy idea, we're going to take money out of the system and somehow it's going to correct itself. No. There's a very clear plan of action that I take people through, and this is why they break down, because they realize, oh my God, this is how simple it is. All you got to do, follow these simple steps. And just because there may be a number of steps in this process doesn't mean it's going to take a long time. It just means we have to start taking the steps, get on the road, and follow step by step, and it can happen very quickly. And as you know, revolutions in all of human history have happened virtually overnight. And I'm not saying this is going to be a bloody revolution, this is a revolution of consciousness, where people just say, we've had enough. Thank you for teaching us what not to do. We've been in this for 6,000 years or more, from the ancient bloodlines in Sumeria, where the first banks were the temples and the first bankers were the priest kings. And these were the first bankers and the priest kings that issued the first forms of money in the form of clay tablets. And I teach people all this stuff. What is the origin of money? How has it evolved? And how the same royal banking bloodlines still control the supply of money today. And this is why they can get away with murder, literally. And this is also why we can and should, and which I do, call the banking industry what it is. It is the largest organized crime syndicate in the world that the planet has ever seen. That's what it is. It is nothing less than that. It's an organized crime that has legitimized itself by writing the laws that protect it. And these are the laws that are enforced on humanity in the Supreme Courts, that are not courts of the people, but courts of the corporations that have become the countries. Like Canada is a corporation. The province of New Brunswick, Ontario, Quebec, these are all corporations registered on the US Securities Exchange as corporations. And I show people this in my presentations. And it's a shock to the system. It's a huge awakening. But I think people are now finally ready. And while it may be a shock to the system, I think there's enough information and enough tools for the people to go away and verify this, to go, oh my goodness, this guy isn't just blowing hot hair up my skirt. He's really telling me some hardcore facts, and now I've got to act. And once you put this stuff down on the table, and it's verifiable facts about how we've been lied to, how we've been conned, and what the simple steps are to get out of it, that's where people make the decision, okay, this is it.
Well, I think that's the key, Michael, is it's one thing to get the information, and let's face it, there's loads and loads of information available to us nowadays, but it can be so overwhelming. And I think too that Foster Gamble said it best when he did Thrive. I mean, he said it's not just about waking up to what the truth is, but it's about actually having some real actionable steps that people can take. And I think if you make it simple enough, which is really key, if you make it simple enough, then it really can happen. But I think what happens too is that people get so caught up in the fear. People get so caught up in the fear. And listen, I had my moment. I watched Thrive a couple of years, 2.5 years ago. And it really threw me. And even though I had already known a lot of this stuff, I think just having it in my face to the point that it was undeniable. I couldn't just brush it aside anymore. It was just there. And I went, oh my God, this is real. And I felt crippled for about 4 days. I literally called Kevin. He was in another city working. I called him crying on the phone. I went into this little bathroom and the kids could hear everything, thinking I was protecting them from the truth, you know? I mean, obviously they sat and watched it with me, but I mean, it just overwhelmed me. And then I had to get perspective and go, wait, he offered solutions. I need to focus on the solution, not the problem. And there's power in that.
Yeah.
And with the work that Kevin and I do, that's what we help people do, is we just let go of all those old emotions, let go of all that fear, let go of all that stuff that's keeping you entrapped and conditioned to believe that you are powerless. And we help people to get empowered, and I know that's what you do too, and I think that's what's really.
No, I love the language that you're using, because when you talk about people coming to a place where they know that they need to do something different, or there's that little bit of dissonance that says, you know what, something's not right here. They have two choices. They can either choose to revert back to
the comfortable spot, the comfort zone.
The comfort zone. I mean, family therapist, very famous one, Virginia Satir, she said, even stronger than the fight for survival is the fight to keep things familiar. And when we look at that, people will revert back to keeping the familiar going and remain in the bubble. So
until it gets so bad that they hit rock bottom.
That's right. And
that's the key thing. I think what you just said there is, by default, the financial and the banking system globally has slowly but surely and gradually been pushing people so far that the majority of people are now right on the edge. There is very little moving space, space between the rock and the hard place now. There's nothing left, very little space left, and this is the time that people are deciding, okay, I have nothing left to lose. I might as well join the revolution of consciousness here and start supporting the people that are doing something about it.
Well, that's definitely one thing that's I think has come that's transpired, since so many people during this economic crisis have lost their homes and they've lost all those material things that they were so attached to. And by losing that, you get to a place where you realize, shit, I got nothing to lose anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so I might as well just join those guys that are actually making a difference that's going to benefit me and my family and my longevity, instead of continuing on this path of absolute destruction, because that's the only way that it's going.
And there are many people that may have followed my actions against the banks in South Africa, which started in 2010. And that's where really I said, I've had enough. And I didn't know enough about the system, how it worked. I knew nothing about the legal system, the court system, because I've never been in court. And very few people know how the court system works, because not everybody goes to court, right? It's only when you enter that dark, sinister place do you realize how deeply convoluted and dark and ritualistic it is. It is unimaginable for
very
the average
sinister
person on the street.
And it's corrupt in and of itself.
It is insane. It's not just corrupt. It's totally and utterly controlled by the banking industry. And when I say this, remember, I was at this for 3 years, more than 3 years, up against the largest bank in South Africa. And I think it's the largest bank in Africa, actually, Standard Bank. And anything with the word standard in it is most likely connected to Rockefeller.
Right.
So we're dealing with very powerful financial institutions here. And guess what? They did not win. They only won by lying under oath, presenting falsified evidence, paying off the judge, obviously, and preparing a pre-written judgment for the judge so that they could walk this.
Wow.
Wow.
And all of this is known by the people that have been following my case. But what has happened in that period, like many other people have done, we kept this as open as possible. All the information and the documents of my particular court case, and often the recordings, are available on the internet so people can learn from it and realize how totally corrupt and controlled the system is. And now we understand what to do to get around it. And this is where it becomes so important in the Ubuntu movement when we start talking about rewriting the legal system by the people for the people, because we now understand that the current legal system we have goes back thousands of years, and it's been evolving with the financial control systems written by the same people that control the supply of money to keep everybody in power.
Well, it's like Foster Gamble said, follow the money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I have to tell you, I've been absolutely inspired already. I mean, we still have a few minutes left, so we could talk some more, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
absolutely.
really excited about this. I just wondered, where have you had a lot of proposals from lots of people around the world to start the Ubuntu movement in their countries? Like, are people actually approaching you saying, hey, we want to jump on board with this. Can you help us get going in our country?
Thousands.
Wow.
Thousands. Like I said, we have members in more than 200 countries now. I don't know how many it is exactly. And about 125 of those countries have already indicated that they want to start Ubuntu parties in their country. So, while I'm here in Canada, there is so much going on back at home that I'm really bursting inside, and I've got to constantly, just control myself, because I agreed to do this tour more than a year ago already. So I had to, come and do it and not let the guys down. But there's so much happening back at home in South Africa. And my poor girlfriend, who's managing some aspects of it, Louise, and Sid Orgain, who joined me in the party for the elections, he's dealing with all the international people that are now want to set up the political parties in their countries, people in countries and provinces and cities that want to set up their own movements, the Ubuntu movements, that are contacting us for, permission and say, can we do this? And it's not about permission. It's about we just don't want people to run off with it, and we don't even know who they are, and suddenly they start spreading forward a completely different philosophy. So we just want to make sure that when we set up an Ubuntu office in Ontario or Montreal, for example, there were a bunch of people that wanted to set up an Ubuntu website and the Facebook page for Montreal, Ubuntu in Montreal. We just need to know who they are so we can communicate with them, and then also put them in touch with all the other people in Montreal so they can start connecting and start growing that family of human conscious beings there that start to bring light and hope into the Montreal area. And so it goes for hundreds of cities around the world. And as I said, more than 120 countries now that are setting up Ubuntu parties for the elections.
I think that is just wonderful.
That's amazing, yeah.
That is absolutely amazing.
And I don't think this has ever happened before, quite frankly, where we have a distinct possibility that over the next 5 years, we may have more than 100 countries around the world where there will be an Ubuntu party contesting the elections with exactly the same fundamental philosophies of human integrity, unity consciousness, unifying humanity against the onslaughts of the corporate evils and those that are trying to separate and that have enslaved humanity, and specifically the unlawful, inhumane, and unethical financial economic systems that have destroyed our lives and destroyed the human seeds within our hearts. And these are going to be the political parties that may, within the next few years, gain a lot more momentum, a lot quicker than what we did in South Africa, because of the groundwork that's been done.
Well, see, what I'm likening that to in my own mind is it's like you're planting these little seeds inside these structures, the old structures of politics and economics and the whole bit. I see these seeds going in there, and it's almost like they're going to cause an implosion within that system. So it's like, get inside the system and be that shining light, right?
Yeah.
It's like Neo entering the Matrix.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to exist in it.
Right.
But how do we exist in it at a much higher level of thinking and level of evolution, basically?
Well, and realizing we have to be in the world, but we're not of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and realizing that there is a higher field of consciousness that we're all a part of, and that field has been disturbed and affected, and we need to correct that and fix it and reconnect the breaks and the breaches in that field of consciousness
And complete that
unite us
sacred
as
geometry
human
around the
race.
world. Hey, Michael?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what, Michael? Can we just talk just for a minute about you coming to Thunder Bay?
Thunder Bay.
You are coming to Thunder Bay. Right now you're in Ottawa. Chris, I don't know if he told you the story, but I found out that you were coming to Thunder Bay on Facebook, or sorry, not Thunder Bay, coming to Canada to do this tour a couple months ago on Facebook.
And skipping Thunder Bay.
And skipping Thunder Bay. And I got a hold of him and I said, you know what? You can't drive through Thunder Bay and not stop here. And so I think I guilted him into to coming to Thunder Bay, but I'm really glad you're coming. And we feel
we're super
amazing
excited.
that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have the space to be able to host you guys, the Modern Knowledge Tour at the Mind Vault. And what is really cool is that we got something started here tonight. We got the conversation going.
That's right.
And when you're here on Sunday, June 8th, this
Yes,
coming Sunday, we're really going to really ramp things up because we have you guys in our presence for 10 hours. That's a long day.
That's a few coffees, I think, eh?
You'll be
Michael?
drinking some coffee that day, but we'll
won't
have
be
some
Timmy's.
nice fair trade, organic, shade-grown coffee for you to drink.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So we're
And
super
also,
excited.
We also want to, I also need to connect, and I have connected already with a lot of Native Canadian people, First Nations people, and this is also important that someone like Eliza Knockwood joined us and is actually traveling with us and sharing a lot of First Nations philosophy with me. Because in South Africa, one of the areas that we're developing very quickly in sharing the Ubuntu philosophy and introducing it back are the tribal chiefs. There are around 200 tribal chiefs in South Africa that have lost their chiefdoms. They're chiefs to nobody because most of their people and their youth have left the beautiful tribal lands and been suckered into going into the overpopulated cities where they then become prisoners because they become trapped and they can't get out.
Slaves.
That's it. So the preliminary talks of some of the tribal chiefs in South Africa, which I believe can be echoed in Canada, in the United States, in Australia, and other parts of the world, is giving these tribal chiefs the confidence that they can actually get the people back to come back into the tribal lands and and share this philosophy with them that many of them have forgotten about, and give them the confidence that it can be done. And very important here, it's the foundation of this is an alternative source of electricity, alternative source of energy. And this becomes a very controversial and a very important platform.
Absolutely.
Once you found an alternative source of energy or electricity that the people can take control of, and there are many ways of providing the solution, then you can leverage the supply of electricity to the people and allowing the contributionist philosophy to filter in. Instead of paying for the electricity, you can get it for free, but all you have to do is contribute 3 hours a week to one of the community projects that we will start with the supply of free electricity.
Well, one
now-
wise man once said, Michael, that you can't be the light of the world if you can't pay your light bill, right?
That's right.
And so if our light's provided and our heat's provided, then it
then we
kind
can be the
of
lights
frees
of
up
the
a lot of energy, doesn't it?
And this is why people realize that why the energy and electricity areas of our planet have been so fiercely protected. And this is very rapidly coming to the surface. Thousands of inventors, thousands of scientists coming up with alternative energy devices. They're coming out everywhere, and very soon it's going to be completely unstoppable.
Well, I think you're really smart,
the-
Michael, to get the natives in these different countries involved. I think you're really that to engage them in this conversation and in this movement, because they have that ancient wisdom that they're still so deeply connected to.
Yeah,
You know?
and it goes not just to the tribal leaders and the traditional leaders, but also the traditional healers.
Yes.
And as you said earlier, Kevin, the pharmaceutical industry, the global drug cartels are just a disgusting, inhumane group of people that that must be eliminated from our consciousness as quickly as possible, and bring back the knowledge, the ancient knowledge and wisdom of the traditional healers, to bring back that knowledge into all areas of healing and providing true healing modalities, and not just management of disease through which drug companies profit and keep, bleeding people for more money every month.
Exactly. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, we subscribe to the theory that the greatest pharmacy on the planet is between your ears.
Exactly.
And they just, the pharmaceutical companies are just trying to find out different ways of synthesizing all the chemicals or all the
that we naturally
that we
create in
naturally
our
have
own
anyway.
bodies. And I mean,
Yeah.
we could go way down the rabbit
yes.
hole if we start opening up that conversation. But you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that those are the kinds of conversations that we're going to have on Sunday when you're at the Mind Vault here in Thunder Bay. So
Yes.
yeah, and you know what? You brought up the native connection. We're really happy to have Kevin Nadjawan, who's also
From Sault
going
Ste.
to
Marie.
be from Sault Ste. Marie, who's going to be at the Mind Vault on Sunday as part of this. I call it a celebration in awakening the human consciousness.
Yep.
And Richard Dolan will also be there alongside you, Michael. And so, I think maybe we could probably talk for hours.
Oh, we could
about
continue
this.
forever. But he needs to get some rest.
He
so.
does need to get some rest. You have a long drive ahead of you. But I do want to tell you this, Michael. It is a long drive from Toronto to Thunder Bay, but it is probably the prettiest
you'll
drive
see.
on your whole trip. Now, I will say the Rockies are pretty
Rockies are nice.
nice. They're pretty nice.
They're nice.
But this drive along Lake Superior, the North Shore, is absolutely phenomenal. So you will want to stay awake a little bit for that.
Now I'm very excited to do this drive, and this is why I'm even more excited that my girlfriend Louise is joining me from South Africa, because I've been very lonely out here, and I've been doing this for too long around the world, and it's not an easy thing to do on your own, and it puts a lot of pressure on your relationship as well. So Louise is joining me this Thursday, and she's coming along this drive all the way to Vancouver. And that's going to take a lot of pressure and stress off me and in my
that's
personal
great.
relationship. As
Well, I'll
well.
tell you
great.
what, maybe I'll give her a massage when she comes, and then it'll make her feel a little better.
Excellent.
Well, we want to thank you, Michael, so
Yes,
much,
thank you so much.
for being here and introducing these concepts. I think that like I said, I think we've started a great conversation here.
Yeah, and we'll continue it.
We will definitely continue it on Sunday. And I just want to mention that if anybody wants to get tickets for the Modern Knowledge Tour, it's modernknowledge2014.com.
Yes.
And there
Get your
are still
tickets now.
seats available. And if anybody wants to hear Michael speak more at length about these topics, then you definitely want to be there. So again, Michael, we'll let you go, and thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you when you arrive Saturday night. And Kevin has promised East
promised.
Indian food, so we will
Yeah.
give you a nice feast when you arrive, nice home cooked meal.
Yeah.
And we look forward to your arrival. So enjoy the next few days, and we'll see you on Saturday night.
And have a great trip.
Well, thank you very much, Ava and Kevin. It was great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you on your home turf.
Indeed.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye.
Well, that was pretty cool.
That was exciting. I'm looking so forward to this weekend. It's going to be amazing to talk to them personally, and expand
Pick
the
their
conversation,
brain,
pick their
pick their
brains,
brain.
expand the conversation a little bit
Yeah.
more than what we had a chance to touch on here. But it's going to be exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're pleased to announce that next week's guest is going to
Here
be
in the Mind Vault.
here in the Mind. We're going to be actually in studio
Yeah.
with Kevin Nadjawan, and he's one of the fellows that they're picking up in Sault Ste. Marie, and
Bringing on the. I
bringing-
think he's just coming to Thunder Bay.
he's coming to Thunder
do a talk
Bay
here.
as part of this Modern Knowledge Tour. So he's going to be joining us in studio. He's Anishinaabe, Three Fires Potawatomi, Ojibwe, Odawa Turtle Clan from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Now, as a member of the Batchewana First Nations Band of Ojibways, Kevin has helped organize a healing prayer journey called the Walk for Nations. And this journey took a team of 4 First Nations youth and 4 young adults on an 8-month, 8,000-kilometer walk across Canada.
Pretty
now,
amazing.
I've driven across Canada.
Yeah, but to walk it,
But to walk it, that's something else.
that's
so
something else. for
join us
sure.
next week. Kevin will be here in studio. He'll be sharing his most compelling story of this and some of the other information that he has.
Absolutely.
That he's going to present on Sunday.
So we just want to say thank you to our team.
Yeah, thanks to the team.
Behind the window there, the crew. We appreciate you guys so much for making this first show, I would say, quite a great success.
Oh, it was amazing. Yes.
You guys are definitely talented at what you do, and we definitely couldn't do it without you. So I guess that's it for that's a wrap, right?
That's a wrap.
That's it for us here in the Mind Vault, and we do welcome you to come and take a look inside the Mind Vault next Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on camptv.ca. In the Mind Vault, we always ask the question, what's really going on? Have a great night.
Have a great night. We'll see you next week.
Girl, grab her hand. That bitch, she don't wanna dance. She's my friends, but I'm in France. I'm just saying, Prince Williams ain't do it right if you ask me. Cause I was him, I would've married Kate and Ashley. Was Gucci my, was Louis my killer? Was drugs my dealer? What's that jacket, Margiela? Doctors say I'm the illest, cause I'm suffering from realness. Got my captors in Paris, and they going gorillas.